Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last lap for the final time of the season for NASCAR. In this video, we're going to recap everything from all Championship 4 events at Phoenix for the NASCAR Truck Series, Xfinity, and the Cup Series. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all of that content. But before we hop into it, just want to remind you guys to hit that subscribe button and that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And you can also check us out on Instagram at The Last Lap News. We try to post some content throughout the week over there as well. And I have my friend and co-host Matthew on the show as always for the final time for at least racing news and coverage that we're going to talk about this season. Hopefully we'll come out with some off-season content, but we'll get to that later. But Matthew, I'd say overall it's a pretty good weekend for the Championship 4, but what do you briefly have to say before we hop into all these recaps?
Well, first of all, I've had a busy day today. I was watching two things at once. Pre-race of the championship race and then at the same time watching the F1 race in Mexico. So I had myself a busy weekend racing and I'm really sad now. I mean, what am I going to do on Sundays now, man? Besides, what am I going to do on Sunday afternoons? I just don't know what to do, man. I gotta figure out something to do on Sunday afternoons.
More like all weekend because a lot
of
times.
Yeah, all weekend too.
Well, especially
what am I
Saturday.
going to do, man?
Especially Saturdays and Sundays because those were usually the Xfinity and the Cup races. But yeah, we'll have to figure something out and try to find some stuff to create some content over the off season. But I'm gonna quickly go over the Truck and Xfinity races for you guys really quick. So the Truck Series race, it just went all downhill for John Hunter Nemechek. He qualified back in the field, quickly dropped back, got into the wall on his own, I think, a little bit, and then he also made contact with a few trucks. Ended up cutting a left front tire down early. I think it was like lap 8 or something like that. He had to pit under the green flag. Lost 2 laps. Was able to get one of them back right away because a caution came out a few laps after he pitted. And then he didn't get his final lap back until 50 laps to go. And at that point, I believe that was the final caution of the race. So he had to start all the way at the back of the field. Drove his way up to the field. He just could not catch a break. He couldn't get that free pass early enough to make his way back up to the field. But the main battle was between Ben Rhodes and Zane Smith. Zane Smith was in the lead, was looking like he could possibly win his first championship after coming up short last year. But Ben Rhodes, he came up clutch past Zane Smith with, I believe it was 7 or 8 laps to go. And he would go on to win the championship. Chandler Smith dominated this race, won both stages and the race. So great for him to end on a high note, winning 2 races in the final few races of the season for him. So great for him to win the race. Ben Rhodes is your Truck Series champion. And heading into the Xfinity race, which I think Matthew and I both agree that I think this was easily the best race of the weekend. Let me see. So the main battle was mostly between Austin Cindric and Daniel Hemric. Those were the main two at the front of the field. John Hunter Nemechek was up there for the race win as well for most of the race in the 54 car. There was a caution with AJ Allmendinger. He had a pretty rough night. He had a loose wheel and he spun out with 20 laps to go, and that brought out a caution, obviously. And everybody pitted. Austin Cindric was the first off pit road. Daniel Hemric second. Noah Gragson third. So those 3 guys were right up in it at the very end with a restart with 13 laps to go. Another caution came out. It came down to a green-white checker, and man, oh man, was it intense. Austin Cindric and Daniel Hemric. Cindric got a really good launch. I thought he was going to run away with it. He actually pinched Daniel Hemric down in turn 3 coming to the white flag, and I thought Hemric was going to wipe him out, honestly, because his car got really loose. Thankfully, he saved it. When they came back through turn 3, though, Daniel Hemric sent it in there pretty hard. Barely tapped the 22, got him just loose enough to get to the inside of him. They banged the doors coming to the finish line, and Daniel Hemric wins his first ever NASCAR race when it matters most, wins the championship as well. And, man, that was just so awesome to see him finally get his first win after 10 second-place finishes and get the win when it matters the most to win the Xfinity Series Championship. Matthew, I know that was probably the race of the weekend for you, just like it was for me, but that was really cool to see Hemric win. I really thought he was going to finish second again, but he proved me wrong. He showed what he was willing to do to get the win and the championship, and he ended up doing it, and it paid off. So, what do you quickly have to say about the truck and Xfinity race?
Well, I got nothing much to say about the trucks other than congratulations to Ben Rhodes on winning the truck championship. Other than that, I'm just really disappointed with the Ford team that they basically blew it away in lap 1 and didn't recover from that. So that's all I have to say about that race, since nothing really much happened after the 4 problems. It was mostly Ben Rhodes up front and passing Zane Smith in the final laps. But I want to talk about the Xfinity race more because, oh my goodness. Woo! Daniel Hemrick finally gets it done when it mattered. And it was even better with the championship as well. And I might as well go ahead and say this now. I got a little confession right here. That Xfinity race has officially changed my mind on this playoff format. I officially love this format because without this championship format, we would not have gotten the finish that we got on that Xfinity race. No way. And on Friday night, I still wasn't happy about the format like I always was. Like, I've always never been the biggest fan of this format. And Friday night was another example because I feel like Nemechek deserved the championship. But that went all the way after this Xfinity race because that was just amazing. Side by side to win the championship. I mean, it reminds me of scoring an overtime touchdown in the Super Bowl, basically. That was just amazing to see. And I know Hammer's gonna get a lot of hate because he quote unquote doesn't deserve it because he got his one career win at the championship race with Austin Cindric 5. But one thing I just gotta say, you just gotta get used to this format. You might as well stop crying about it. You might as well stop whining about it. You might as well get used to it because that's how NASCAR is going to be using it, and they're going to be using it for the future. I mean, so I'm surprised NASCAR fans these days still haven't gotten used to it, but you might as well now because I've changed my mind on it, and because of that race right there, and I love it now. So I hope we have more of those finishes in the future, side by side to the finish. We almost had one in the Cup Series. Well, not really, but it was kind of close. But yeah, that was an amazing Xfinity race. Congratulations to Daniel Hemrick. He definitely deserves to finally win this race. I mean, he's had so many downs, and it's just nice to see him finally do the signature backflip. The backflip celebration's back, like the Carl Edwards days. And it's great to see somebody else carry on the tradition. He's going to be going to Colleague Racing next year, and I think Colleague Racing is going to be happy now they have the reigning Xfinity Series champion. And I think Hamrick will be better next season now that he finally got the win. I think with that win now, he's going to be even better next season with Colleague Racing.
Yeah, I forgot to say it, but I was going to say during the Truck and Xfinity recap that your mood swang from hating the format to loving it. In 24 hours, your mood completely flipped of this format. So, yeah, I mean, is the format fair? Not really, because obviously John Hunter Nemechek won all of those races and fell short in the championship, but from an entertainment perspective, I think it's one of the best options they have. Putting it on one race for everybody to execute. Everybody's even. Whoever finishes the best wins it. Yeah, they tried to compare it and make it more like stick and ball sports, which they did. But I mean, I honestly don't think we would have gotten the intensity we got at Martinsville last week either. Like, sure, it probably would have been a good finish, but I don't think we would have gotten the drama and intensity there either. And you think back to Phoenix in 2014, Ryan Newman shoved Kyle Larson into the wall to get the final spot there. I was thinking of other instances before the video too. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But we've seen what drivers are willing to do to get 1 point to make it to the final round, and now we just saw what a driver is willing to do to win the championship. So from an entertainment perspective, I think NASCAR nailed it. as far as this playoff format goes. Is it fair? No, not really, because it comes down to one race. But from an entertainment perspective, it definitely delivers. So, I love the format. I'm glad you're finally on board with it. But I'm gonna hop into the Cup recap really quick. So, Bubba Wallace, he had a really tough start to the day. He spun out on lap 7, got some help by the 7 of Corey LaJoie. Was not happy about that. He did a little wave and all of that, so he wasn't too happy about that. And then a few laps later, the Stenhouse and LaJoie, they both wreck again, and LaJoie backs his car into the wall. So I guess he got a little bit of karma there for getting into Bubba. Truex looked good really early. He won stage 1. And before I move on, the main story of this race was the difference between short run and the long run, because the Hendrick Motorsports cars, they were very good on the short run. They would launch and they would just go and get out of the gate and put a pretty good lead on themselves for the JGR cars. But after about 30 laps, Truex and Hamill would slowly start to gain in on them, and they would eventually pass them. So Truex would win stage 1. There were 3 cautions in stage 2, actually. Briscoe had a pretty hard crash on the 80th lap in stage 2. And at this point, Kyle Larson, they made some adjustments to his car. He looked really good. He was even pretty good on the long run, because he was able to make it to the end of stage 2 and end up winning that. And then it started to shift back in the momentum of Joe Gibbs Racing, because Kyle Larson's car somehow vanished and looked kind of bad, honestly, in stage 3. Let me see. So this is where the race gets interesting, because Martin Truex pitted under the green flag, and a caution came out, and he was on the lead lap, so he would be able to regain the lead. Ryan Blaney was second after he also pitted under green, and then under caution, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson all pitted. They lined up behind Ryan Blaney and Truex. That was with 58 laps to go. And then a caution came out with 30 laps to go. There was a brake rotor or something in the racetrack right in the middle of the groove of turn 3, so definitely the right call for NASCAR to throw that. But that caution came out, and that basically saved Hendrick Motorsports, because they were falling. Martin Truex was in the lead. Denny Hamlin was slowly catching Truex. I don't know if he would have gotten to him or not in 20 laps, or 30 laps. He could have, but I think they were just so equal. I don't know if Denny would have gotten there. But Kyle Larson goes from the last playoff driver to the first playoff driver. His crew had a spectacular pit stop under that caution. I believe it was like an 11.8 second pit stop or something like that. It was their second fastest pit stop of the whole season. His crew came up clutch. He had that first pit stall. He was able to get off pit road first. They had a restart, and Larson was able to hold off a hard-charging Martin Truex Jr., I might add, to win his 10th race of the season and his first ever NASCAR Cup Series championship. So huge congratulations to Kyle Larson. I think we finally got a champion that a driver that outright deserved the championship. I think we finally, the format finally came through and delivered to the driver that deserved it most out of the whole season. So huge congratulations to Kyle Larson there. Did he have the best car in this race? No, he did not, honestly. I mean, he had a good short run car, but Martin Truex Jr. looked really good in this race. I think he probably had the car to beat. But Kyle Larson was able to get it done when it mattered most. Get the win. Get his first ever championship. So, Matthew, what do you have to say about the Cup race and Larson getting his first ever championship?
Well, first of all, I want to send my huge congratulations to Kyle Larson and the number 5 team. I mean, Kyle Larson has been through a lot last year and into this year. So it's great to see him, going through all he had to go through last year, getting that top ride at Hendrick, and then absolutely dominating the series. So I want to congratulate Kyle Larson on that. This race was definitely an interesting race. It wasn't the best race, but also wasn't a very bad race either. Like I was expecting a lot of long runs this race, like it was last year here, 2020. But it actually wasn't. It was so interesting because the Hendrick cars were all short run cars, but the Gibbs cars were all long run cars. And it seemed like turn during the end of the race, getting near the end of the race, both of them are starting to get their short long run speeds like really like close together. So it's like it was basically I'm trying to think what I'm saying, but yeah, Kyle Larson didn't really have the best car today. He qualified on pole, which I'm so glad practice and qualifying was back this weekend. So happy about that, because one of NASCAR's worst decisions was not having practice and qualifying. But Chase Elliott actually took off like the very first part of the race. I feel like Chase Elliott was looking really fast, but it seemed like that Martin Truex Jr. on the long runs was coming, and so was Denny Hamlin, and it was back and forth basically. A Hendrick car would be up front, then a Gibbs car would be up front. This was the tightest Final Four that we have ever had with this format. Like, we've seen good lineups for the Final Four pass, but one or maybe two of those cars will just not have a good car, while the other like 3 or 2 cars will have the best cars. So I feel like all 4 of them had the 4 best cars of the field. So it was great to see how close this competition was today. And it all came down to that one last pit stop with Kyle Larson having a clutch pit stop with that team. The final 5 pit stops, by the way. That's the final one right there. But it was great to see them execute that. I feel bad for Truex though, because I'm pretty sure he was going to win that championship until that caution came out, which I have no idea why that 13 car was out there in the first place when he was like 15 plus laps down or whatever. But it is what it is. But Kyle Larson executed that last restart real well and ended up winning the championship. So that was absolutely great for Kyle Larson. I mean, 10 wins. This has to be one of the most dominating seasons in NASCAR history. 10 wins with a championship. We've seen drivers win 8 races and 9 races, but they didn't win the championship. Kyle Larson was able to do that with this format too, which is really impressive. Man, it really did feel like a good Phoenix race this weekend. I think the resin also has to do with that, because instead of PJ1 they do resin. I think that made a difference of better racing in my opinion. But yeah, other than that, it was a really close Final Four. I feel like this was the closest we've seen in the with this playoff format. And congratulations to Larson, and we'll see how he does next season with the next gen car and everything. I think it's going to be a big question mark to see how this team will continue to be better for next year with a brand new car and everything. Will they have the same success as this year? Will they take a step back, or will they win the championship again? Guess we'll have to find out next year.
Yeah, I definitely think this was one of the most competitive Championship 4 races. Like you said, all the drivers were pretty competitive and up there. I don't know if Denny Hamlin led any laps today, but he was running down Truex at several points in the race. His car looked good over the long run. But every driver had their fair chance at winning the race and the championship. So, yeah, they all looked really good. Chase led. I think he led like 100 laps or something like that, but unfortunately, his car went away a little bit as the day went on. He couldn't really run the top. He could only run the bottom of the racetrack, and the top was really overpowered with that resin. So you basically had to run the top to make a lot of ground. But let me go over the top 10 with you guys really quick. So Kyle Larson got the win. Truex finished second. Truex gave it a good run. Couldn't quite get there at the end, though. Denny Hamlin finished third. Ryan Blaney fourth. Chase Elliott dropped down to fifth. Eric Almirola 6th, and also Kevin Harvick, his SHR teammate, in 8th. So SHR looks like they finally found something near the end of the season. Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell, JGR cars, finished 7th and 9th, and Brad Keselowski rounded out the top 10. So there are the top finishers for you guys, and I believe we have to rate the race, and then we'll just about be done with this video for the season. So Matthew, what are you going to rate this race?
I'm gonna give this race an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a really good race. I think with the championship 4 made it way much more interesting because of how closely this championship 4 really was this year and how closely tight they were, like the 4 best cars. So I think that made this race much better. The strategies made it better. So I'm gonna give this race an 8 out of 10.
For once, I think I'm actually going to go a little bit below you. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a fairly... I mean, as far as the Championship 4 goes, all of them had a pretty fast car and had a chance to win the race. But I didn't like the fact that you could kind of run the bottom, but it was primarily the top of the racetrack that you had to run. You couldn't pass that well on the bottom of the racetrack, but, I mean, it was still a good race, though. So I'm going to go ahead and...
Chase Elliott could.
He could, but it was tough. He really had to work at it.
It was tough when he got close to the car. When he was by himself, he could make up a lot of ground, but it was just the dirty air that made it tough.
Yeah, it was pretty hard to pass, but overall, I do think it was a good race. I don't know why people were thinking or saying that Phoenix was a bad place for the championship race. I don't know if it was drivers or people in the media or whatever, but
in my opinion, I think last year wasn't that good in my opinion, but this year I felt like it was a little bit better. I think it has something to do with resin instead of PJ1 like they did last year.
Yeah, I think that does have something to do with it, but also hopping into our own little fantasy game, we were tied going into it. We were like 0 for 5 or 0 we were like 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 because none of us got our Truck or Xfinity Championship or race winner picks correct, so that was kind of bad. And finally, one of us got it right. I picked Kyle Larson to win the championship, and he ended up doing it, so I get the go-ahead point there. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was a lot of fun for us to do this season. We'll come up with a little bit different of a format next year. You know, it's like the NASCAR Cup Series. You know, we got to experiment with the formats a little bit and find something that works the best. So
we can't change it too much, or fans will hate us, man.
Yeah, we got to be careful. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that over the off season, and we'll come up with a different format that will be a little bit better and more consistent. But Matthew, do you have any other closing thoughts? I mean, this is our final race covered for the season, and we'll try to come out with some other content throughout the off season as well. But you have anything else to say before we wrap it up?
Well, it's been a wonderful season. I'm glad this was my 14th season in NASCAR, and that's now completed. Another great season. I've had a lot of fun this year going to tracks, going to a brand new track in Nashville, seeing brand new tracks on the schedule like Circuit of the Americas, Road America, and I cannot wait for next year with a brand new car, brand new everything, a couple new tracks here and there, like the Clash and Gateway, and yeah, I'm just sad that the season's over, and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do on the weekends now, and we have to say goodbye to the Gen 6 car, the 5 Lug Nut pit stops, Chip Ganassi Racing, Brad Keselowski and Penske, and many others. So it's been a wonderful season, and I'm looking forward to what's in hold for next season. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going. I know. I remember NASCAR on Fox was promoting, the best season ever thing, and it might not have been the best season ever, but I definitely think it was a pretty good season overall.
I think they should have saved that slogan for next year, to be honest.
That is true. Yeah, that is true with the next gen car coming, but it was a great season. We saw a lot of Kyle Larson dominated races, but it's not necessarily a bad thing when it's cool to see a driver succeed as much as he did and to cap it off with a championship, especially in this playoff format. So I'm really glad for him to be able to get that done. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video, but we're going to need some ideas of some content to make over the winter. So if you guys have any ideas, drop them in the comments below, tag us on Instagram or something about some video ideas we could create over the summer. or summer. Wow. Whew. Summer just
Come
ended.
on, man.
Man.
This dude's already.
I'm ready to graduate college, man. I'm already thinking to summer next year, but winter, sorry, for the off season. Make sure if you guys have any suggestions to drop those down below. I know we're going to give some drivers some ratings for this year. We're going to talk about some of the best moments from the season and all that kind of stuff. So if you guys have any other suggestions, make sure to drop those down below, because we're going to need some ideas for some content over the winter. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, but we will see you guys in the next one.